What's up, everybody? Name code Dustin here. Fantasy Smack Talk, talking a little baseball for you. So we're going to do our waiver wire, of course, and guys, you should be looking at, and we're going to be doing the forum questions. So Dustin, start us off here, please.
I did have one tip, though, before we get into it.
The CEO weekly tip.
This is a good tip.
Bi-weekly tip.
The one thing I wanted to point out, though, is I see it a lot where teams will just chase saves to the point to where they compromise ERA and WHIP and any other potential categories that your league has just to try to get some of the save opportunities. Don't do that. There's no sense in having a terrible closer in your lineup just to hopefully get a save. I love closers, and I think they have a huge impact on a fantasy team when you have good ones. But if your closer is bad,
who was that old closer that was terrible?
It was Danny Graves.
Danny Graves!
Danny Graves! I'm sure he burned a lot of teams. But don't necessarily do it just to get saves. That's my tip of the week. I saw someone do it and I got mad, so I wanted to say something. Add in all leagues, Justin Morneau. I love that I can put him on this list and actually talk about him and justify why he should be there. I love to see him back hitting up over 300. He's only on in 65% of leagues. Let's not forget former MVP, Justin Morneau. 28 RBIs already this year. That's tied for 15th in the league. Yeah, I counted down to see how far down he was. The guy still can potentially do it. He seems to be healthy. Pick him up.
Is he rocking the big helmet still? Does he get the bubble helmet?
I don't think so.
That's probably why. All right, I'll be talking about another first base, and that's James Loney. We talked about him in our last show as a guy that's been playing well, and he's still doing great. 381, 20 RBIs, 3 bombs, 2 bags. Again, if you got a guy that's not doing well, like Davis, you can grab Loney and just plug him in and put Davis on your bench and wait him out.
Ride that hot streak. All right, our last must-add in all leagues, Kenley Jansen. We love this guy coming into the year. He's just one of those closers that, he can strike out the side almost any given night. The K potential is amazing. I was actually really mad when the Dodgers announced that League was going to start the year as the closer. I mean, Jansen just has too good of stuff to be pitching in the 8th inning. He needs to be in there. He's going to be in there soon. You need to pick him up now before it's too late. Owning 65% of leagues.
Dustin was generally pissed off.
I was
which
really
is what
mad.
I love.
I was really mad.
All right, let's take a look at some of those deeper league guys. And I'm going to start off with Scott Kazmir. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, God, he's been kind of terrible. He was supposed to be the next big thing, though. And he pitched great. And granted, it was 2007 when he was pitching great. But the reason you'd grab him is he's getting a ton of Ks. He obviously had that top pedigree. And that's kind of what you got to look at. But you got to know he's going to have some days where he gives up a ton of earned runs. Deeper leagues. Scott Kazmir.
K potential's still there. Outfitter I want to talk about Gerardo Parra for Arizona. Seems like he's been around for a good amount of time, but he's still only 26 years old. You gotta like that he's had 15 stolen bases each of the last 2 years. And when you look at his numbers though over the last few years, it's just very slightly above average in a lot of categories, but there's still the potential for a breakout with him. He definitely does have some talent, and he is gonna throw in a little bit of speed, so he's definitely an outfielder to give a second look to if you haven't looked at his way in a while.
All right, another first baseman for you. That's Mitch Moreland, owned in only 15% of leagues. If you're in deeper leagues, you're looking for somebody, he's probably available. On the year, he's batting close to 300 with 9 home runs, but he's been hot the last week, batting 375 with 4 bombs. It's a similar thing, right out the hot streak. If you need a first base, corner infield, you could do a lot worse than Moreland.
Another guy I want to talk about, outfielder for my Twinkies, Oswaldo Arcia. He came up in the majors this year and just really got off to a hot start. And you got to ask yourself, is he going to keep this up? Maybe not to this pace, but one thing to definitely look at is what did he do in the minors last year and the years before. He was actually really solid in the minors. 2012 batted 320, 17 home runs, 98 RBIs. His hot start is certainly not a fluke. This kid is very talented and could keep up close to this pace.
All right, we're going to go into guys to keep an eye on. And the first one, go ahead, Dustin.
Liriano.
Has he not burned you enough?
He's not on the Twinkies anymore, but
I
still love him. Come on. He's actually owned about 25% of leagues.
Which is crazy.
Mainly because of his first start. He came back one thing with Liriano in his career, he rarely goes deep into games because he's always just trying to strike people out, but he had 9 Ks in 5.1 innings. That's why you get this guy. You hope that he can stay healthy, strike those guys out with that nasty slider of his. The guy's unhittable when he's on.
When he's on,
Unhittable.
Which is not all the time. All right, I got Hector Santiago. We got another pitcher I'm going to be talking about here. Owned in about 25% of leagues. Now, his last outing, he got roughed up a little bit, but overall, in his last 3, he had a 2 ERA with 20 Ks. So, he's definitely got some potential there. The one thing to note, though, is that Danks will be coming back soon, and the talk is he might lose his spot in the rotation. So just keep that in mind, and that's why he's a guy to keep an eye on.
The last guy we're going to talk about
Everyone probably thinks
is David Phelps for New York. Only on 10% of leagues, 38 Ks so far in 35 innings. He's definitely a guy that had decent success in the minors. He certainly has potential to be a guy that can get a decent amount of wins for the Yankees. And if the Ks are there, what's not to like? Definitely a guy to keep an eye on. Only owned about 10% of leagues. And we do have one form question. This one is tricky. Comes from Dave B. He's got a couple decent pitchers on his waiver wire. Not sure who to pick up. Do you pick up Cingrani or do you pick up Gerardo?
Yeah, and I personally think it's a little bit tough, and it's really based on what you're looking at if you're picking up off the waiver wire. I think the ceiling for Cingrani is definitely higher, but there is talks that he might end up getting shifted back down, which I think is kind of crazy for them to do, but there is talks that, so you have to keep that in mind. So if you're looking for a high upside guy that could really put your team possibly over the edge, I would go with Cingrani. If you're looking for a guy that you want to plug in and be a little more consistent or just eat some stats for you during the year, then I would go Gerardo, but it's a tough one.
It's a tough one. I say go with the youngster, get the upside.
Always on the bench, that's what we like to do. Always young with upside over old and reliable.
Well, Gerardo's far from old and reliable, really,
at
this point.
He's not really reliable.
He's
That's
not
a good
that
point.
old, but the guy's been all over the place. But the potential's still there. But I like Cingrani. This one over here is Nameco.
That's me!
I'm Dustin. Get in those forums if you got any questions.
At Fantasy Advice on Twitter, Facebook, like us.
Subscribe.
And we just did a rookie NFL video, so check that out. He dropped the pen. He never drops the pen. He never drops the pen.